Welcome back to The Standard. A daredevil troupe of performance artists will dance on a 2.5-tonne melting block of ice suspended from a crane above London Docklands this weekend. Australian company Legs on the Wall says the piece, called Thaw, is centred around an iceberg-shaped block to highlight climate change for the event at Greenwich and Docklands International Festival. Artistic director and show creator Joshua Thomson says he was inspired by Australian bushfires he witnessed in 2019. The flames roared close to his off-grid, self-built eco-cabin. Joshua joins us now. Joshua, why are you bringing the show to London?
So the opportunity came, I was talking to Bradley, the artistic director of Greenwich International Docklands Festival, and I was talking about the work, and he said, look, they obviously do a lot of public art, and I was talking about it, and he had an affinity with the environment and sort of felt like it was a good work to bring to London. We opened the work in Sydney at the Opera House over the harbour with the harbour bridge in the background. It was such an iconic moment, and the work itself has a sort of art as activism. So that, and particularly in the space of the Opera House, it's often a place where activism happens. We presented the show in Tasmania, in a sort of natural gorge, a water system gorge in a national park. We've also presented it in New Zealand.
Would you say another reason for coming to London is to sort of highlight the work the whole world needs to be doing in terms of fighting climate change?
Definitely. Like if the story ended here in Sydney, well, that would be a shame. And I'd feel all the resourcing, I understand there's hypocrisy in exactly what I'm doing. Like the show takes energy, to tour it to London it does have a cost on the planet. And I understand and I acknowledge that, but I always believe that the idea is worth that cost. You could never really measure what that idea, like Inception, right? Like it grows in people. It could mean something to a young boy or a young girl that they grow up and they do something amazing with that in mind, and I think that's the power of the work. And it is a global problem.
So let's talk about Thaw. Can you describe to us what the performance is? What does it look like?
It consists of a 2.5-ton ice sculpture hung off a crane at 20 meters with a performer on top of the ice as it melts away over a 8-hour period. The performer is so much of the storytelling and represents, I suppose, the every person in the climate conversation. They have set choreography to set composition, moments of light and shade in regards to tempo and strength and power, and then also some really fragile, quiet, vulnerable moments of themselves out there. And I think that's a part of the strength of the work, because it's not easy to be out there on the ice. You're sort of out in the elements. You're probably dealing with hot sun, but you've got, you're wearing a full wetsuit to manage the cold as well. And if you hit the ice, it's like hitting rock. So it's big, but the choreography is sometimes massive, and they're running and jumping and leaping from the ice at 20 plus meters in the air. And sometimes they're running around the side of the ice form. There's some aerial acrobatics. But then there's some really beautiful moments of just sitting and being, particularly in the durational aspect of it. These moments are so powerful because they're so, they're a time to reflect on the issue itself.
I mean, a lot of work must go into training for such a feat. How does one train to dance on ice?
It's very difficult to rehearse on the ice because the ice form takes so much to manufacture in the first place. So we have what's called a rehearsal deck, which is a geometrically similar in regards to the shape, but made out of wood. And that is then hung in our purpose-built studio in Sydney. And the performers at least get a feel for the size and the scale, but it's a very different space to be working on ice and wood. So there's a lot of things that the performers only get a couple of chances before they go up actually on the ice to feel the difference between the two.
Surely they're harnessed. I mean, hopefully they're not just freestyling.
Yes. Look, I'd love them to be unharnessed, but I'd think I'd go through too many performers. They are harnessed, definitely harnessed. They are on a safety line and on a full body harness to allow them to jump to the side and float around and spin around the ice and get underneath the ice. So they would fall off the ice. It's so slippery, it's constantly shedding water.
And finally, what would be your message to Londoners or any tourists passing by the event this weekend? What would be the main message or takeaway that you'd like audiences to go away with?
I think if I could say anything about the performance is it is incredible to feel the ice. It's not like a crane lifting concrete that's static. The ice, even though it's hard, it is moving and melting and cracking, and there's an energy to it itself because it's there's an elementary movement to it. It's definitely spectacle at some moments, but sometimes it's more reflective, where audiences are asked to watch and reflect and think about it and what's it mean to them.
Yeah, I mean, one of the first images that comes to mind is the melting ice caps in Antarctica.
Yeah, look, to be honest, the show is everything like that. It's the orangutan in a small pocket of rainforest surrounded by palm oil plantations. It's the glaciers melting. It's Australian bushland continuing to get diminished. It's all of those things in one, and if you went, they're sort of the micro ideas, but then if you pull out, it's the macro of this planet, and we've got one of them. You are right. Like it captures all of those environmental images and conversations. I would suggest that the audience comes twice, actually. Come early in the day, come late in the day, see the difference between the ice. It changes. It loses over half its mass over the period of the time.
The Standard will be back on Sunday with London Love Stories. For all the latest news, head to standard.co.uk. Have a wonderful bank holiday.